Underground, the Liberty Report.
Well, hello, America. Welcome to Moretti Underground, the Liberty Report, the best news show on the web. Today's Monday, June 8th, 2015. It's 8 o'clock on the East Coast, and that means it's, 5 o'clock over at the Pacific Coast. And we're reporting live from the studios of PRN Radio Network. That's the exclusive home of the Watchmen of America program, by the way. I'm Joanne Moretti, and my great co-host Scott Ferrarello is here, too, and we appreciate you tuning in. Thank you very much. Our chat rooms, both at Blog Talk Radio and right here at PRN Radio Network, are open for you, too. Some of our awesome colleagues, Lynn, Famous Anna, AstroTurf, are in the chat rooms, putting all the links and articles and sources and documents in there so you have them all available to you. Boy, we've got a lot of documents tonight, too. Thank you for that nice courtesy, by the way, my friends. Our colleagues are more than people in the chat room. They're the best researchers, analysts, journalists around. So please say hi to everybody when you get in there. You might even run into several of our other colleagues. Today, we have so much news to share with you. We're going to be doing some Jade Helm stuff. We found this program. It's called the Minerva Initiative, and every bit of what you're looking at and seeing going on around us right now has to do with that Minerva Initiative. So we're going to be sharing some of that with you. We also have a ton of news, too. The show is somewhat controversial. You know, the things that we discuss aren't always the same way as they're discussed in the mainstream media. So, you know, I just want to tell you that, you know, we strive to be correct, and we always source our information, and we provide documents and everything for your records. Before we begin, I must first do a short disclaimer, though, and that's just to let everybody know that what's said on this show is my responsibility and not that of our awesome hosts and sponsors. The disclaimer goes like this. The comments made by hosts and or guest hosts or phone callers of the PRN Radio Network do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints, ideology, beliefs, or anything else of members of the Watchmen of America program or the Patriot Resistance website, whether it be past, present, and even future broadcasts. The show's probably rated about PG-13. You know, like I tell you every week, we don't usually hardcore cuss or anything, but, you know, sometimes there's a quote in there, and you know your kids, you know their maturity level, so you handle it. All right, let me open up Scott's microphone here, and we'll bring him in, say hello to him, give him a proper welcome, and then we'll get the show started. Hey, Scott, welcome.
Hey, how you doing, Joanne?
Pretty good, dear. Pretty good. How was your weekend?
Yeah, it's fine.
It was fine? Yeah. I was busy as heck. I've been doing a lot of research here. Man, I know that you've seen all the links and everything going by and been keeping up with them, but there is just so much to take in. You know, I wasn't going to believe any of this. I didn't believe anything about Jade Helm. You know, I just I went along with it for a while, and then I started to notice that it was absolutely real, and then I wasn't sure if it was, you know, just an exercise or, you know, what it was. But now I'm a believer. Man, this is the big one, and we're going to get to that in a few minutes because there's some stuff going on that we all need to know about, and it's right in front of us, and we're going to provide all the links and documents. As a matter of fact, Lynn has a link to a whole thread that we've been working on, and every single document is in that thread, so we'll put that up. Let's do a little bit of news first, though. We've got a couple of stories I want to get to, and they actually do fit in with what's going on. You know, everything, it doesn't look like it's connected, but it actually is. All this stuff in Baltimore is connected, you know, in Ferguson and all of that. We've gone through it, and we've outlined them a piece at a time. But tonight we're going to put all the pieces together, and we're going to try to lay it out in an understandable pattern. So let's start with the riots at the Met Stadium. There was a hip-hop summer jam last night at the MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. Well, it turned into quite the brawl. There was riots going on, tear gas, all kinds of cops in riot gear and everything else. The concert ended up closed. But you know what? They kept playing while all that stuff was going on. But the crowd got rowdy, and they threw beer bottles at cops and each other. And according to newspapers, troopers later fired rounds of tear gas and used mace. It was just a horror scene. So when they're doing these summer jam concerts and stuff, make sure you go with your kids. These were pretty much unattended teenagers and young adults that were doing the rioting and throwing stuff around. I don't know what's going to happen, but things are getting pretty hairy out there, especially with the young people. They have this message that everything they do is okay, especially if they're minority kids. And, they think that they're invincible and nothing's going to happen to them. Nothing's going to happen to the organizers. But the organizers aren't going to be the ones in the hospital, the morgue, with their little butts in jail. So, don't think that the Obama administration and all these radical groups like the Soros groups and, Black Lives Matter and all that stuff, they're not going to help you. They're not even going to pay you if they hire you to riot for them. Just when you think everything's cool, it's going to be you with the record and you not being able to get a job. The organizers, they already have jobs. They
don't call them useful idiots for nothing.
Mhm.
And there's no jobs anyway, so, what are they going to do? Move to China? Not
yeah, and that's the thing. You're right. There is no jobs. The only jobs there are is to work for these activists. And let me tell you something, they're all over the place, too. They're hiring activists right now up in Seattle. So they're expecting some riots or something up there. As a matter of fact, Critic, colleague of ours, played on his app all these different advertisements for people to riot, for activists, for Black Lives Matter, for feminism, for all kinds of stuff they're hiring up there. They're the only ones throwing money around and hiring these kids. So what a way to get loyalty, huh? The only game in town.
When your government allows for rioters and people to pretend that they're activists and they're mad and starting things with cops so you can federalize them, it's pretty much over. I mean, it doesn't get much worse than that. I mean, they have to fake crisis so they can rush in with the solution, and it's always at the expense of our rights and our liberties and our lives sometime, and certainly our money.
Oh, yeah. And, boy, you guys are going to be furious at the end of this show when we lay out what we have for you. All right, next up on our agenda is what happened in McKinney, Texas at that pool party. It was not a pool party. It was a freestyle rave event. And it was organized online, on Twitter and on Facebook among all these kids. You know how they text each other and flash mob? Well, that's what it was. This DJ named DJ Rain, R-E-I-G-N, works for Dime Events or Dime Systems or something. He decided that he was going to throw a rave party and charge people $15 to get into it. So he goes to this gated community. It's like a housing complex. They have this big pool there. It's a community pool for everybody who's a resident there, but not for outsiders. He decides he's going to set up in the parking lot and have this rave party, and he invited everybody on Twitter to come to this party and charge them $15 each. So all these kids show up. Now they are not allowed into the pool, so they decide to hop the fence and go into the pool anyhow. Well, the residents got mad and called the cops. One of the women said something to the girl that was thrown on the ground by the cop, the little one in the bathing suit. One of the residents said something to her. She ended up fist fighting with this woman. So when people are thinking that this is this sweet little girl that just got, body slammed to the ground by a cop, no, she wasn't. She was just ripping the hair out of some woman 5 minutes before that. That's why the cops were called. Anyhow, they send this one cop in to straighten it out. He was all by himself. So he's telling all the kids to sit down. The girl who had attacked the woman, she decides that she's not going to sit down. Now, she had already attacked one adult. She thinks she's Mrs. Coolbreeze. She goes up to the cop, and she's telling him what he's going to do, and she's flipping out. And then he grabs her, and she ends up on the ground. He, knelt on her back. Then a bunch of people decide to come around and mob him. I watched the whole film. I watched it frame by frame. He did pull out a gun. Now, I can't identify guns. I don't know if it was like a .45 or a Luger or a Taser gun. I really can't tell the difference in the guns. It was really fast. When he pulled it out, a couple of cops come up behind him. He put it away. And the kids that were surrounding him all decided to run. Now it's all over the place. Here's this 30-second bit of a film that shows the cop throwing the girl on the ground. they had cut out all the part about her beating up the woman, which we finally did get a hold of the video, and I'm sure Lynn's already got it in the chat rooms. But we found that vid, and there she is. I mean, she was kicking the stuffing out of this chick. She wouldn't even let that woman go one bit. And people are trying to break it up, and she just wouldn't let it go. And she was mouthy and everything. I'm not saying, that the cop was right or anything, but he was all by himself, and there was a mob there, and they were surrounding him. So when the other cops showed up, that's what happened. So now they got these activists, and especially D-Ray. We've talked about D-Ray. D-Ray is a federal snitch. He's a paid activist. He shows up in all these events and all over Twitter, and he gets it going. Well, he's really going to town on this. He's saying just stupid things. So now we have all these witnesses that have come forward. This guy named Michael Quatrin, he says, Facebook friends and family, please help. Now that a viral video of the officer in McKinney subduing a girl in a bathing suit was in our neighborhood, the situation is not what was being reported. A DJ set up a public space next to the private pool in our neighborhood on Friday and played loud, explicit F-bomb music for multiple hours. It's unclear if he was invited by a resident, as no one has claimed responsibility. The teenagers, both black and white, were being brought into our neighborhood by the carload because the DJ was tweeting out invites to a pool party for $15, obviously unauthorized by our neighborhood. The teens began fighting with each other and pushing their way into our private pool. Some were jumping our fence. The security guard was accosted when he tried to stop the beginnings of this mob scene. Some residents who live around the park pool area tried to come out and settle things down. The teens started yelling racial slurs at our neighbors and started assaulting people and property, throwing bottles at cars and attacking a mother at the pool with 3 young children. The first officer on the scene was by himself. At that time, the party had grown to a large, aggressive crowd. As the officers arrived, many teens started running through our neighborhood. Many of the teens were being very aggressive and yelling at the officers as more arrived. This was a dangerous situation for the officers and the teens and the residents that weren't involved. The new media has refused to hear the neighborhood side of this story. The video being distributed is only a very small segment of what happened. The information being distributed by the media and others is extremely distorted and in some cases outright lies. Please help us stop broadcasting this. And then another guy named Brian Gestiner says, I was there. I'm the bald white cracker. This was a Twitter party that turned into a mob event, jumping the pool fence, assaulting 2 security guards, attacking a mother with 3 little girls. The video doesn't show everything, y'all. Kids were drinking and smoking weed and didn't give a damn about the parents or the children around. This is not about race. This is about outside kids, parents, and children. This is about invading our neighborhood and had no respect for authority or the residents here. So he says, now I have a target on my back, and I've been threatened by these punks, and that they're going to shoot up my house, when all I did was try to control the mob and actually tended to the girl and the boy that had a bloody lip. Y'all don't know the whole story. It'll come out soon. So, and here's these people that live in the neighborhood trying to tell us the story. And all over, even Fox News, not one of them has showed the video of that young girl beating up that lady. Not one of them. I looked for it all day.
And you know what? Who invites people to a pool party on Twitter? You want 1,000 people? You want 5,000 people to show up?
Right.
You want Acorn and these community agitators to read to see it on there and send over Al Sharpton's crew. I mean, that right there is suspicious.
Yeah.
So it looks like more ways to get all the white people to think the cops are angels, and get all the black people to hate cops even more.
Mm-hmm.
When both groups of radicals, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, they just, out of the clear blue, though, decided that they were going to have a pool party at somebody else's pool in someone else's parking lot.
Just out of the blue, huh?
And just, out of the blue.
Instead of calling, 10 of my friends or getting on Facebook and sending some private messages to 10 of my friends, I'm going to put it on Twitter. Maybe I'll just rent a billboard or go down the ghetto with a bullhorn and just invite them all over. That right there is very suspicious.
Yeah, and they charge $15 a head to get in, too, to a pool that they were not allowed in. You know, the kids all showed up with their $15 and couldn't go into the pool.
That just made it look believable. You know, it was like creating a crisis so the police could come, and then when you see that even Fox News doesn't show the whole video and shows it out of context, that tells you what the whole goal was. Make it look like, oh no, more white cop on black, victim crime. I mean, you know what? What about the police chief? Don't you think he might have had a black officer on board in his whole precinct? How about the black guy to go deal with the black girl? No, because that wouldn't look good on TV, you see, and that wouldn't start race riots and more rioting and complaining.
Yeah, well, it says that it started at a park that borders this gated community. So they just, when people showed up, it was just like a mad mob scene, they said. And when the cops got the call, it was about a girl fighting with the woman. So they sent one cop down there to straighten it out, think it's, just a chick fight. And when he ever got there, boy, was he in for a surprise. Unbelievable. So there you have it. And that is manipulated, just as Scott said. I wouldn't be surprised if this DJ Rain isn't working with one of those activists. If we look further, we're probably going to find him playing at one of these, events. But it's funny, it happened in Texas, huh? Texas is a hostile territory.
And, they're still arresting bikers just because they drive motorcycles, and they're still, keeping them in jail and rearresting them and just stomping on their rights.
Yeah, well, now, here they are, this little town in Texas. And now they want to federalize these cops, too. They're giving themselves a reason.
Yeah.
Here's this big bad cop all by himself in a crowd of kids, and he's the bad guy. One cop.
It's no coincidence that this is all happening in Texas. They're doing it on purpose. And you know what? It'll be Utah next. Wow, they were just listed as hostile territories by our government.
Exactly.
Aren't we
the point.
So glad we got Jade Helm in there already? Wow.
Yep.
Not only that, they got razor wire being loaded on the semis, spotted all over Colorado on the New Mexican border.
Mhm.
A lot of it. Okay.
I saw that.
Enough for every FEMA prison in this country.
Yeah.
Razor
who needs
wire.
that much razor wire?
Yeah, they don't send these to Girl Scout parties.
Yeah, I know. They're gonna put it around a gated community, right?
Hey, it's just a drill. It's just training, for overseas that they got to teach
Leavenworth
the cops.
is a gated community.
It's all just lies. Turn off
your
your
speaking
TV
of Texas,
news and listening to it. It's not even worth it anymore.
Well, speaking of Texas and hostile territory, a Border Patrol helicopter was shot down in Texas. This is also part of it, by the way. A U.S. Customs and Border Protection helicopter was fired at and forced to make an emergency landing near the riverbanks of Laredo, Texas, officials confirmed to Fox News on Saturday. The incident took place around 5:30 p.m. Friday when the aircraft was patrolling the Rio Grande near the far northwest corner of the border city of Laredo. The helicopter was impacted by gunfire, hitting the side of the aircraft and the rotor blade, a U.S. Customs and Border Protection spokesman told us. The pilot was able to make a safe landing. There were no injuries. Now, he had his bulletproof vest, but he didn't have it on. He put it underneath his seat. That probably saved his life. But, all right, now we have Border Patrol being shot at inside the United States. And they're trying to avoid telling us that it was inside the United States. That Border Patrol guy was not in Mexico. He's not allowed in Mexico. So it happened on the United States side. So now we have this going on. Also, there's a story about a rancher who got a visit from a couple of guys in a Mercedes and told them to get the hell out of there, that they were taking over that ranch, also down there in Laredo. They were taking over that ranch. So he got his family out of there and called the cops. And that might have been part of what was going on. So that wasn't even, the Rio Grande. That was at this guy's ranch. So who's shooting at the Border Patrol? Is it our own? Is it the Los Zetas, the Sinaloas? Is it Americans? Who's doing this? Cartels? Doesn't matter. really who it is, does it? Because the border is wide open. We're never going to know who did it. That's also part of it.
You know, it doesn't matter when your government are giving border security squirt guns and beanbag guns against, gangbangers with AK-47s.
Yeah, now they get water bottles and towels. They don't even get any type of beanbags or anything. They're just water boys, Walmart welcomers. And then Jay Johnson said that illegal immigration is down. Yeah, well, you made them all legal and you opened up the border. There's no such thing as an illegal immigrant now, is there?
Yeah,
of course illegal immigration is down.
All right. They're all here.
Yeah.
You know? Now it's all
25%.
going the other direction, when they get homesick.
All right, you ready to jump into this, Jade, Helm, and Minerva?
Sure, go ahead.
All right, Minerva, Minerva Initiative. On Wikipedia, it says, the Minerva Research Initiative was announced in 2008 by Secretary of Defense Robert M. Gates. Minerva looks to tap into the community of area specialists and other university researchers, particularly those who work on Islam, Iraq, China, and related areas. In 2008, the project was provided $50 million by the United States Department of Defense to fund academic research on 5 separate themes. One focus was on China, the second on terrorism. Now, you remember who's on Obama's terrorist list. Not Al-Qaeda, not the Taliban, not the Muslim Brotherhood, okay? Who's on the terrorist list are returning veterans, Christians, pro-lifers, constitutionalists, sovereign citizens, anybody who likes smaller government. That's on the terror list. So you remember that, all right, because the rest of the terrorists are already gone. We don't have any other terrorists on our list. All right, a third on Iraq, a fourth on Islam, and a fifth that is open. That open one is one you got to worry about, too. The goal was to create improved relationships between the Department of Defense and the universities to develop knowledge that military can benefit from in the long term. The Department of Defense funds Minerva directly through the National Science Foundation. So, when we talk about all these science grants and stuff, what is the Department of Defense funding research at universities to study socio-political and anthropological? Now, anthropology is the study of man. But as it turns out, this Minerva initiative is not just the study of man, but it's the study of how to control man. And what they're doing, ladies and gentlemen, is they are intentionally pushing our buttons. They want to know what our breaking point is. They want to know if we will rise up against the government if they do certain things, like take away our guns, take away our Fourth Amendment rights, take away our Fifth Amendment rights, manipulate our court, hire activists to incite riots. Every bit of that is in this Minerva initiative. And they try to make it off like it's just doing research. But not only is it research, but it directs policy. It even targets peaceful activists, NGOs, and protest movements. They have targeted the Tea Party. They have targeted returning veterans. They have targeted just normal, everyday Americans like you and me. They want to find out how we are going to react when we have no money, when we have no water, when we have no food, when we have major violence in all the big cities. Sound familiar, ladies and gentlemen? Well, many of you have likely read or heard about the upcoming Jade Helm 15 military training exercise that's going to take place on U.S. soil during the summer. And many believe that this training is specifically geared and aligned towards upcoming civil breakdown here in the United States. That said, how many of you have heard of the Minerva Research Initiative? It seems there may be a tie-in between this initiative, which was instated following the 2008 crash. Now, the 2008 crash happened in September 2008. Happened 7 years before that, in 2001, too, by the way. That's going to come up. But in 2008, it happened in September. The election was in November. This Minerva initiative was initiated in December of 2008. It was finally put into practice in January 2009. So, although it was all written up and everything was ready to go, Obama had to sign it. And it says the premise behind the Minerva Research Initiative is apparently this: study how violent political overthrow, also known as mass civil breakdown, happens in the day and age of social networks, and be prepared to counteract it by targeting peaceful activities and protest movements when it finally reaches U.S. shores. What is Minerva? It studies the dynamic of civil unrest and how the U.S. military might best respond. From the Mill website itself, it says, understanding the physical terrain and environment, cultural and political environment where those threats develop, detection of radical actors and regime disruptions, improve the Department of Defense's basic understanding of the social, cultural, behavioral, and political forces of strategic importance. The Minerva Research Initiative, initiated by former Secretary Gates in 2008, says while the initiative is started to cover regions of the world of strategic importance to the U.S., certainly the most strategic region is right here in the United States, the homeland. So here's something interesting, and this is reported from The Guardian last year regarding Minerva. It says, among the projects awarded for the period 2014 to 2017 is a study managed by the United States Air Force Office of Scientific Research, which aims to develop an empirical model of the dynamics of social movement mobilization and contagions. The project will determine the critical mass tipping point of social contagions. So, did you know that Jade stands for Joint Assisted for Deployment and Execution, and its initiative established by the Air Force Research Laboratory? Remember that thing that we posted for Jade Helm? Right from, it says here that that's part of Minerva, and it says it's from the Air Force, and sure enough, here is this going on. Another Minerva project, according to the original Guardian report, seeks to uncover the conditions under which political movements aimed at large-scale political and economic change originate. So, could the Minerva project be tied in with Jade Helm? If you study the apparent purpose for Jade Helm, it does seem to complement Minerva, doesn't it? Says,
yeah, and they know as soon as this BRICS thing goes through in September, all right, they already said China, its currency is going to be the new reserve currency for oil, all right?
Yep.
So when that happens, the dollar and the euro goes down the drain. Gasoline goes to about $12 to $14 a gallon. And then of course
doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to come up with that 12 or 14 bucks.
No,
you know what? Is we owe out more money than we have printed. There's probably
people
about
are starving to death. They're going to freak out, especially when their beer supply gets cut off. And this Minerva is not going to be able to figure out how people are going to react to this because it's never been done.
Yeah, well, from 2008 until now, they have had plenty of time to not only do their research, but initiated it. So now remember when we were talking about how Eric Holder was suing banks and using the money to give it to the Acorns to start this unrest? Well, it's not just the $50 million. That was just the research grant. All right, the $16 billion that Bank of America had to get off of when they were sued by a holder. He said it wasn't going back in the Treasury. He was going to give it to community outreach programs.
It never goes into the Treasury anyway. People think they pay income tax and it goes into the Treasury for infrastructure. No, it goes to pay the interest to the Federal Reserve.
Yeah,
Global mafia.
That $16 billion went to Acorn, and they weren't even a part of the original lawsuit. So anyhow,
they got he's got billions in slush funds to pay out to these people. You don't even need that. It's just it's another money laundering operation, just like Clinton's and funds to save starving people in Africa.
Yeah.
They say, oh, please send us money so we can build these people homes. And then they build them a couple meager shanties for $10 a piece and keep $40 million for themselves.
Almost $1 trillion, yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're right, but when they're talking about a small amount like $50 million, people are going to say, well, it's only $50 million. Yeah, but that was just for the study. That wasn't to get it going. This started in 2008. They've had plenty of time to do all this research and find out what they have to do for us to reach our breaking point. Now, there's a lot more to this. This Minerva initiative is like the blueprint on how to start civil unrest, not just here, but how to aggravate China and Russia and how to keep this caliphate going, because that's not only about social changes, it's about regime change, it's about globalization, it's about when people start resisting, especially Americans, when they start resisting this global takeover. They have everything in place. Now, think about who's doing this. You got military special operations. You got Green Berets. So when they say they're training them, maybe there is a little bit of training, but those people are already trained. They're all working in conjunction with our police forces. They're attacking the police forces so they can federalize them. The whole time, that's only for us. They want us to scream, please, federalize the cops. The cops are all bad. The cops are all racist. We need the government to step in and take over.
Oh,
they
yeah, like they're
trying to goad you into it.
Like they're not twice as bad. Does
right.
anybody believe that? They're going to be the same cops. They're just going to have less rules and less regulation, which they don't have any now.
And more corruption.
I mean, they're kicking down people's house doors, shooting their dog, and threatening to kill them because she missed 2 utility payments on her light bill. Can you believe that?
I believe it.
Now, if somebody would have told you this 10 years ago, you would have thought they were a kook.
That's part of it, Scott. They want us to reach our breaking point. They are doing this intentionally. They know she was an innocent person, and they know they had to go rough her up. They know that skinny little black girl getting body slammed to the ground was going to cause a reaction. That's part of it. Every bit of it. It's all theater. It's all produced.
Yeah.
Look at those bikers down in Texas. Again, Texas. Texas is hostile territory. They were not bikers. They were actors. Okay, how many times have you been to a biker rally and saw that many men with no tattoos?
Yeah, no women.
No women and no tattoos. And they're all dressed in Harley gear riding Honda Shadows.
No biker chicks.
That don't happen. And then when the cops do show up, the bikers stuck around. Are you kidding me? If there's 100 bikes, they're taking off in 100 directions. You got 12 cops there. They can't catch all 100 of them. But they hung around. Guys, look for what's not there. There was no tattoos on those men. Now, there was a couple that had tattoos. But for the most part, they didn't have any tattoos.
Yeah, Mickey Mouse and
look at all
Woody
that virgin skin, honey. That's not a biker group.
Woody Woodpecker and, something he got in the 70s when he was drunk. All right.
Mm-hmm. And then
I know. But when you don't even have Fox News telling you 30% of the truth anymore, which at least they used to tell you at least 30% of the truth, what are you going to do? Most people have no idea what we're talking about, or they think we're crazy, or, they've never heard of the Bilderberg Group.
Bilderberg's meeting as we speak.
If 120, rock stars were all meeting in secret, you'd have everybody from Entertainment Television to CNN there trying to find out what they were doing. But these are world leaders, generals, prime ministers, kings
and Jim Messina.
Queens, and nobody even wants to cover it,
Yeah, just Alex Jones.
Why.
I used to think Alex Jones was a kook. He's just sensational. He's not a kook at all. He's actually right. And I wouldn't have believed it if I didn't do every bit of this research myself, and our crew did every bit of this research themselves. And you, I would have believed any of this story. But you know what? Every bit of what I'm telling you right now is true. And I have to tell you, I'm real scared. And I honestly, with all my heart, sincerely believe that this time it is the big one. They are putting all their markers in place. They're not training the military. They're training the cops. And this is, like I said, all theater. Now, Tyler Durden, he is the boss over there at Zero Hedge. He's a nice kid. He's completely grounded, all right? The kid is just stable and normal and natural, and he doesn't do any type of, conspiracy theory type stuff. The kid is all about the finances and stuff. Well, he wrote about Minerva a year ago, and he said, about a month ago, we showed photos of the Chinese police engaged in a drill designed to crush a working-class insurrection, in which the police did precisely what would be required to end a middle-class rebellion. It made us wonder, what was China know that the U.S. doesn't? As it turns out, nothing. Because long before China was practicing counter-riot operations using rubber bullets, all the way back in 2008, the United States Department of Defense was conducting studies on the dynamics of civil unrest and how the U.S. military might best respond. Now, it never should have been doing that. First, let me stop there. How the U.S. military might respond. The U.S. military is barred from operating on U.S. soil. You remember that. And that's why he has to hijack the police departments. Remember, he said he wanted a civil military that was equally equipped and equally trained as the U.S. military. Now,
National
that pesky
Police Force.
Right, that pesky Constitution and the law against posse comitatus is in his way. Anyhow, how the U.S. military might best respond. The name of the project, Minerva Research Initiative, and its role is to improve the DoD's basic understanding of the social, cultural, behavioral, and political forces that shape regions of the world of strategic importance to the U.S. The Guardian, which first revealed the details, reports that the multi-million-dollar program is designed to develop immediate and long-term war-fighter-relevant insights for senior officials and decision-makers in the defense policy community and to inform policy implemented by combat commands. So you see that policy implemented. They're not just studying it. They're now at the implementation stage. The premise behind Minerva is simple. Study how violent political overthrow, also known as mass civil breakdown, happen in the day and age of social networks, and be prepared to counter it by targeting peaceful activities and protest movements when it finally reaches U.S. shores. Among the projects awarded for the period of 2014 to 2017 is a Cornell University-led study managed by the U.S. Air Force of Scientific Research, which aims to develop an empirical model of the dynamics of social movement mobilization and contagions. So, this article goes on, and I'm sure Lynn has it in the chat rooms, the link. But what it's telling you is how people like us and, all your friends on Twitter and Facebook, how you're communicating with each other, how we're discussing things like we're discussing now, how far it travels, and what they're going to do to stop us. Now, you know damn well the TSA failed 97% of the time. 57 out of 60 times they failed. Okay, but they're still feeling up little old ladies. They couldn't identify a bomb, though, right? At the border, we got our border patrol being shot at. We got Obama running guns. We got a wide-open border. We don't even have any illegal immigrants anymore because they're all legalized now. The doors are wide open, bring them all in. That's to pollute our society. Okay, that's an infiltration. Plus, he's airlifting them in from Muslim countries. And the UN, the big one, is the one doing the vetting of these immigrants. The 65,000 Syrian Muslim immigrants they want to bring to the United States, half of them are already here, first of all. But it's the UN who vetted them. The UN, how they vet them? What do they got, like a database or something? No, they don't. So that's baloney. So now.
We knew this was going to happen. We knew it when this guy was running for president. We knew by the radical things he said, and nobody covering it, nobody vetting him. I mean, it's all been a setup from the get-go, and there's not a thing we can do about it to stop it. We've been screaming at the top of our lungs about this happening for 7 years now.
Yep.
And when the mainstream media, even like Fox News, won't even allow Joe Arpaio to prove that this guy's birth certificate, his Social Security number, everything was fake. I mean, it's all over. And
that was part of it,
too. And there's no solutions to this.
They studied that to see how we reacted to it. They even studied us with the birther issue. Now, one of the Minerva Awards that was selected for 2015 went to Arizona State. It said, New Analytics for Measuring and Countering Social Influence and Persuasion. Dynamic Statistical Network Informatics. Computational Model of Resources and Resiliency. Deploying the elements of national power for strategic influence. So that's why they're going around. Now, you think Jade Helm is just those states, right? That's the originals? Well, it isn't. Up in Flint, Michigan, over the weekend, they had an exercise. Now, we've talked about the exercises in Fort Lauderdale, in New York, in Boston, in Los Angeles. And it started, if you remember, back a while ago, up in Wyoming. There was a little town up there, and remember they had feds coming in, and people were worried what the hell were the feds doing there? It was a long time ago, too. That was where this began. So anyhow, why did Jade Helm start yesterday in Flint, Michigan? That was Thursday, June 4th article, and it's by Voice of Reason. It says, not to worry, they're from the military and they're here to help. So let me see if I understand this correctly. The folks with Operation Jade Helm are from the government, and they're there to help. Do I understand that right? Government tells us we have nothing to fear. Yet, the governor of Texas, where many of the drills are taking place, openly calls the Obama administration liars and then dispatches the Texas State National Guard to spy on the drills to make sure a military presence is keeping a watchful eye over them. Sounds great to me. Conservative Tribune reports the Pentagon dismisses claims of Operation Jade Helm being training for martial law. And Army Colonel Steve Warren, a Pentagon spokesman, says Operation Jade Helm poses no threat to any American civil liberties. Sure, and monkeys might fly out of my butt too, right? This whole thing has failed the smell test since day one. And recently, even the mainstream media at the Washington Times began reporting on Obama's martial law takeover plans. We are told Jade Helm 15 will involve thousands of special operations military personnel, including Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Green Berets, and similar units training across 7 states, including Texas, which was labeled as hostile for training purposes, of course. That's what military sources have openly admitted. So you just have to know there is more, and they're not telling us. One place to begin looking for what we are not being told is with regard to the secret underground tunnels discovered all over the country, and coincidentally seem to connect many of the areas where Jade Helm training is being conducted. Did I mention human remains have been found in several locations near the tunnels that happen to connect to these areas? Yeah, that too. We did an article a couple weeks ago about all the dead bodies being found. Well, it's a safe bet. There's more there's not telling us. At one point, we were told the operations for Jade Helm were an 8-week joint military and interagency unconventional warfare exercise that would be conducted in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Nevada, Utah, and Colorado. A clearer copy of the map is available. Anyhow, the list keeps growing. It says, you know what I remember seeing? The Posse Comitatus Act. For 137 years, it kept the military off American streets. In direct violation of the Posse Comitatus Act, which I cover in detail in my post titled U.S. Army has ads on the Internet seeking internment camp resettlement specialists. Operation Jade Helm is an 8-week exercise being conducted by the United States military and the Interagency of Unconventional Warfare. Pre-Obama Posse Comitatus had stood in this country as law for 137 years, essentially forbidding the use of the U.S. military to police its own citizens. Open Change took care of that. Operation Jade Helm is designed to simulate a military response to an uprising of the American people. Obama has known since day one that his plans did not even resemble anything constitutional, and it's expected that eventually we the people will snap and try to take our country back. When we do, Obama and the rest of Crime Incorporated will be ready for us. Being the clever little crap that he is, Obama duped the Democrats into not reading the National Defense Authorization Act, which essentially did away with Posse Comitatus and did away with the entire Bill of Rights with the exception of the Second Amendment. And we all know how hard Obama's working on that one. To learn about his most recent gem, check out Second Amendment in the Hands of the UN, because Obama doesn't believe people should own guns. So then there's this guy, David Hodges. I don't know if I believe him or not, but he seems to have some verifiable information, not all of it, but some of it. So he's over at the Common Sense Show. He writes, not only is the use of 3 Special Operations Forces suspicious with regard to Jade Helm, but more notably is the announced use of JPRA, and this is a frightening event. The Joint Personnel Recovery Agency maintains a series of training school sites whose subject matter includes prisoners of war, hostages and detainees, evasion, escape, search and rescue, prison survival techniques and experiences, geography and cartography, natural science, ethnology, and country studies. It also has terrorism, military, and naval science, too. But it says the majority of the above definitions makes it clear that the intent of JPRA is to teach POW survival skills, at least until they use the word detainee. Now, please let me call your attention to the term detainee. In layman's language, the term detainee simply means someone who's a prisoner of the military occupation force. To the average person, the use of the term detainee would not raise an eyebrow, but to someone who's in tune with the connotations and denotations of military parlance, the term detainee holds specific meaning, as evidenced by the following document. And then it goes on about the Restricted U.S. Army Internment and Resettlement Operations Manual, dated May 2, 2012. So now they're running advertisements for these detention centers. And that's since 2009, and they're still running them. In Section 1-10 of 3-39.40, a civilian detainee is a civilian who is interned during armed conflict, occupation, or other military operation for security reasons, for protection, or because he or she committed an offense against the detaining power. So that's what the detainees are. It's also to develop a PSYOP. And the PSYOP products that are designed to pacify and acclimate detainees, or DCs, to accept U.S. facility authority and regulations. It gains the cooperation of detainees to reduce the number of guards needed. Identifies malcontents, trained agitators, and political leaders within the facility who may try to organize resistance or create disturbances. They have taken that to the stratosphere. They are actually paying these people. So I wonder if they're going to get D-Ray anytime soon. Anyhow, plans and executes a PSYOP program that produces an understanding and appreciation of U.S. policies and actions. The use of the word detainee is conspicuous, and as the reader can clearly see, it has specific meaning with regard to a red list extraction action. You know, so when you hear that Flint, Michigan feels like a war zone, and then Army officials who refuse to allow their faces on camera make a statement, you know, then you got a problem. So let's talk about Flint for a minute. The city said loud explosions where Army training exercises were. It was a peaceful afternoon, and then residents said it seemingly turned hostile. I was standing there, and all of a sudden, boom, Gene Glenn said. I mean, it was loud. It blew up the whole sky or whatever. It was like 4 or 5 big bangs. Explosions you'd expect in a war zone echoed through Flint. People's homes shook, and those inside were caught off guard. It all went down Tuesday at the shuttered Lowell Junior High on the city's east side. The blasts were part of an Army exercise. Now, Jade Helm isn't in Michigan. So, I'm telling you, it's in every state. Anyhow, the blasts were part of the Army exercise. It says there's older people, it probably gave them a heart attack or something. Flint's spokesman, Jason Lorenz, said the city had been in talks with the Army for 6 months now about using parts of the city. This is part of a joint exercise being carried out across the United States. So why wasn't it listed with Jade Helm if it's part of a joint exercise being carried out across the United States? Anyhow, it's an exercise to help their personnel do training with urban environments, Lawrence said. The training included using aircraft and simulated ammunition. It will continue for the next 10 days. I think they should have gave us a warning to let us know there was an Army thing going on. I really do, Humphrey said. So just after 11:30 a.m., the city sent out a release informing the public about the exercises. People say the explosions went off around 2 Tuesday afternoon, but why were residents given such short notice? Obviously, I can't speak for the Army on that, but we try to give people a heads up when we can, he says. And they also explained the reasoning behind the delay in notification. They said yesterday was a unique situation, said Chief James Tolbert. For whatever reason, the timetable was moved up, and we put it out as soon as we could. So why did they move up the timetable? When was it originally scheduled for, and why did they all of a sudden do it and then just give people 2 hours notice when they've been working on it 6 months? And why would they say it's part of an exercise that's going on all over the country? Why wouldn't they say it's just an exercise? Why'd they have to connect it like that?
Yeah, and I suppose people aren't going to believe their eyes when they're imprisoned behind razor wire at Walmart.
Yeah, well, now up in Flint, up in southeast Michigan, I don't know if it was Flint, it just says South Michigan on this one. It says, clean up and repairs after helicopter damaged Sperry's. Sperry's, I guess, is a store. It's a building. And they said that the building is mostly gone. Part of a green tiled awning on the east face of the building is collapsed, and a few of the historic building's storefront windows are shattered. But Larry Jones doesn't regret lending the site to the U.S. Army for training. Our police force and fire department and military risk their lives for us every day, and in order for them to do the great job that they do, he said that he doesn't mind that his building was all wrecked up. Now, they do a great job. Our military is the best military in the world, but right now they're being abused. Anyhow, Randy Farrell, a spokeswoman for the U.S. Army, said the damage happened about 1:30 a.m. during urban training exercises designed to prepare military members for overseas deployment. They keep telling us that. One group of Army members had already landed on the building, conducted training, and left again. When a second group descended, disaster struck. It was as we came in on the descent on the second iteration that it happened, Farrell said. We stopped training at that point in time. Anyhow, what happened was the facade in front of the building came down with some bricks and an awning and stuff. Now, Sperry's is a store, and there was a furniture store there. But now, the guy that owns it, his name is Johnson, and he's got a buddy, Larry, Marshall is his name. He's a Canadian. And they are big donors to the Democrat Party. So that's probably why their building was chosen. And they overpaid for the building. So where'd they get the money? And then they got some permits for other buildings that they had bought and purchased.
It's all one party anyway. There's no Democrat, Republican anymore. That was just an illusion we used to pretend for the last 100 years, but it's all been fake. And this year proves it all. Old John Boner's going around pushing this communist trade partnership.
Yep.
There's no representation, nothing.
No.
You got a couple of lone wolves squawking, but that's all they can do is yap, 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 like a chihuahua, all bark and no bite.
Yeah. All right, so now we got another one going on in Maryland. This is a media release. On June 14th, 2015, beginning at 6 p.m., a multi-agency, full-scale emergency exercise will be conducted at the Valley Mall in Hagerstown. The purpose of this exercise is to evaluate the response of police, fire, and medical personnel during an emergency event. The better trained our emergency responders are, the more effective they will be during true crisis situations. There will be numerous emergency vehicles and personnel in the area during the exercise. Please remember this is only a training exercise. The Washington County Sheriff's Office would like to thank the community and businesses. So, why, if this is a training exercise and it's, for the military, why do they have cops and ambulances and fire departments from the Sheriff's Department in the community?
What are they going to say? If they don't say it's a training, what are they going to say? Hey, you don't mind if we do this, do you? 'Cause we just want to make sure we know how to kill and round up as many of you slaves as we can when we take this country down in a couple of months.
Well, think about it. Never in our history have we had the military training on U.S. soil in U.S. cities in such a large scale as this.
Hey,
ladies and gentlemen,
never in history did they try to ban toy guns. Never in history did they, make it illegal to make fun of anybody on comedy shows. Never in history. I mean, they've broken all history records in this last 15 years, starting with the Patriot Act. Never in history have I went to the airport and had a proctology exam.
Yeah,
I mean, you know,
really.
I could go on forever.
And a breast
And
exam.
nobody does anything, and they, you know, you can't even get Charles Krauthammer and Sean Hannity to talk about it because, you know, they're all just meat puppets as well.
Mhm.
Well, you know, I hope they're all happy because guess what? When the country is taken down, there's going to be no more use for useful idiots. There's going to be no more use for puppets in the media because they've got plenty of those. And there's going to be no use for, you know, crooked people in Congress either. So these rich monkeys that have these gold-plated underground bunkers, you think they're really going to have half of these people they promised room and board? No. You're going to get a gas chamber underneath there.
Yeah.
But, you know, have fun. Have fun
well, you're right
telling
about
everybody
that collapse.
Down the drain.
You're right about that collapse. We're going to get to that collapse because, ladies and gentlemen, you better get some cash on hand because there is a collapse coming. And that's what this is all about.
That cash
and look at the timing.
Worth anything.
Well, you can't even get cash.
Yeah,
you're not going to be able to get cash.
You better invest in some Chinese Jumanji or whatever you call it. Because, you know, American money isn't going to be worth squat. They'll confiscate all the gold like they did, you know, back in the day, FDR. And, you know.
We squandered our gold. And money will be obsolete in the end. However, in the initial part of it, your ATM isn't going to work. We got about $3 trillion of money in circulation. Most of it is supposedly in the country, but we don't even know. So we owe out way more than we actually have printed because everything's done with credit. So you're not going to be able to get money. There's going to be a dollar shortage.
Well, and if you got a lot of money in the bank, they will make it
so
you will only be able to extract your monthly expenses, and that's it. If you're lucky.
Yep.
Because they'll probably just take it all.
Yep, they're talking about haircuts and bail-ins. Let's get back to Jade Helm so we stay in order because that is coming up, absolutely. CNN put out a story Friday asking this. They said, it's getting real. Our final warning. America under massive cyber attacks as Bilderberg prepares to ban cash and entire financial system is threatened. The CNN story out on Friday asks if we've just received our final warning. The massive hack of the U.S. government computers exposed the personal files of over 4 million current and retired government workers, and who knows what else. And ANP takes another look at the Norse Live Cyberlinks website. We find that America is under massive attack constantly, minute after minute, hour after hour. We also learn that the strange entity on Norse called mil/gov is also under constant attack, yet nothing like America, which finds itself on the receiving end of attacks by mil.gov quite regularly. False flag cyber attacks, high-tech banditos in China are on the attack end all day long. What does all of this have to do with Jade Helm, we might ask? With recent revelations on ANP from Susan Duclos, that Jade Helm 15 has a very strong cyber attack element involved with the planning of this event, with the unearthing of linked pages of several JH principals whose own statements prove that the planning of this event goes back to at least 2013. After the U.S. government has been hacked once again, blaming China, while China calls the U.S. statement that they're behind the attacks, they're responsible. Meanwhile, the cyber attacks keep coming in by the second, attack after attack after attack. And as the first video from Dabu 7 tells us, the White House is looking to pass new cyber laws. Was the attack blame on China a false flag to allow our government to further crack down on the Internet? In the second video from InfoWars, we learn that Bilderberg is preparing to drive the final nail through the dollar by banning cash, while the entire financial system could soon come crashing down in an Armageddon-style cyber attack that could very well be what JH-15 is preparing for, the end of the current system. And the third vid has proof that Jade Helm has already begun. Mia Kelly's linked page shows her as the cyber IQ planner for Jade Helm 15, while Francisco Oquendo's page shows that he's been a JH-15 operations planner since July of 2013 to present. Kelly's summary goes on to tell us that she's experienced in electronic warfare planning. How's that go?
And it's all fake too. I mean,
it is all fake.
The U.S. controls the internet. They control who gets in, who gets out. Now they're going to pretend to hand it over to the powers that be, so they can say, "Oh, well, you know what? They've banned this sort of speech, so I wish we could do something about it, but we turned it over to them." Blah blah blah. And I don't even know what to say.
Yep. Well,
we're just being scammed and screwed from every angle, and only a handful of people are awake. And what are they going to do about it? What are you and I going to do about it? All we can do is
I'm feeling
very
insignificant.
And we can warn people, to brace for it. But what's the difference? Someone who doesn't know anything, they're going to get shot in the back of the head and not see it coming. And those of us who know what's going on are going to get to see it coming, and we're still going to get shot in the head.
Mhm. Well, I think that's what happened to Reed and to Kerry. Reed doesn't like treaties, so he wasn't going to let that Trans-Pacific Partnership pass. So I think that's what got his butt kicked.
There's no passing. There's no passing. There's no vote. There's
no bill.
This is what we're going to do, and we're going to go through the motions and make it look like, oh, this guy doesn't like it, and this guy is against it, and it might barely just pass in the House. It's all BS. It's going to pass, just like Obamacare passed, and everybody said it wouldn't because it's unconstitutional. Of course it's unconstitutional. They can make you buy health insurance. They can make you buy a car or anything else they sell. I mean, it's so unconstitutional that even someone like me, who isn't a constitutional lawyer, knows it's unconstitutional.
That's true. The real deal behind the Trans-Pacific Partnership, though, is actually BS, because that only involves 12 little countries, or 11 little countries, like Malaysia and the Philippines and Vietnam. What they want is that fast-track authority. The fast-track authority doesn't just cover Trans-Pacific Partnership. Oh, no. It covers every trade agreement from now until it expires in 6 years. So it covers everything after the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the real ones like the TPIP, the one that's going to be talked about at the UN on September 25th when they crash the economy. When we switch to a basket of currencies with, like Scott just said, with the renminbi, the Chinese renminbi, on top. And, as a matter of fact, if you look at China's stock market today, it shot straight up with that news. Listen to this. Inside China's stock market eruption. All the indicators are off the chart. The speculative fervor in China's equity markets is spreading as the Shanghai Composite hits new multi-year highs on elevated volume. The index easily cleared the 5,000 mark after hovering just above 2,000 around 6 months ago. This rally has been nothing short of spectacular. From investing.com, here are some key trends that point to just how heated the market has become. A-share, which is domestic trading activity, has exploded. From Credit Suisse, weekly account openings have reached new highs. This is a revenue bonanza for China's brokers, as many tap the IPO market themselves. This one's from Vic Ramad at Reuters. Ratios are touching historic records, as well as valuations are stretched in many instances. Margin debt levels are also near record, including as a percentage of market capitalization. China's public equity market cap is now around $10 trillion, as in comparison to Japan's whole market is half that. That's over 13% of the global equity market capitalization, after being just above the 5% 6 months ago. So everybody is investing in China right now. Their stock market has shot through the roof. Ours is being artificially pumped up until September. And Janet Yellen even said that there was going to be some changes. There's also a link on that whole trove of links about the Yellen collapse and how spectacular it's going to be for this country. The Federal Reserve is being phased out. It'll be absorbed by the IMF. The Bank of International Settlements, XIM Bank, those are going under, also being absorbed by the IMF. We are moving September 25th to the beginning of the basket currencies, the death of the U.S. dollar. That's a given.
This
and
is
the
what
UN
it's all
climate.
about, all right?
Yeah.
And when they make the dollar worthless and everybody's starving to death, then they'll say, well, you know what? I tell you what, money's not worth anything, but we can give you this credit card of electronic currency, and you can buy food with it.
Yep.
And people will be forced to or starve to death. What choice are you going to have?
Yeah, and that brings
the equivalent of holding a gun to your head.
That's exactly
what it is. Without actually doing it.
And
then the people that don't like it, that's when the military comes in and shoots you because you didn't pay your phone bill.
And without that debit card, if you noticed, even Social Security checks have been switched now to a debit card. If you don't have a bank account that they can automatically deposit and withdraw, they will send you a debit card. They aren't sending paper checks anymore. They will control what you can use. You can pay your debts with it, but you can't take cash with it. I think it's over like $50 a day cash. Sometimes you need cash. What if you want to buy your kid a present or something, or give it to somebody for their birthday? What are you going to do? Let them use your card?
Screw your kid. You might buy him a toy gun or something with that money.
Well, Tyler Durden,
you.
Yeah, from Zero Hedge, says literally your ATM won't work. While we were thinking about what was really going on with today's strange new money system, a startling thought occurred to us. Our financial system could take a surprising and catastrophic twist that almost nobody imagines, let alone anticipates. Do you remember when a lethal tsunami hit the beaches of Southeast Asia, killing thousands of people and causing billions of dollars in damage? Well, just before that 80-foot wall of water slammed into the coast, an odd thing happened. The water disappeared. The tide went out farther than anyone had ever seen before. Local fishermen headed for high ground immediately. They knew what it meant. But the tourists went out on the beach looking for shells. The same thing could happen to the money supply. There's not enough physical money. Here's how and why. It almost seems impossible, hard to imagine, difficult to understand. But if you look at M2 money supply, which measures coins and notes in circulation, as well as bank deposits and money market accounts, America's money stock amounted to $11.7 trillion as of last month. There was just $1.3 trillion of physical currency in circulation, about only half of which is in the United States. Nobody knows for sure. What we use as money today is mostly credit. It exists as zeros and ones in electronic bank accounts. We never see it, touch it, feel it, count it out, or lose it behind seat cushions. Banks profit handsomely by creating this credit. And as long as banks have sufficient capital, they're happy to create as much credit as we're willing to pay for. After all, it costs the bank almost nothing to create new credit. That's why we have so much of it. A monetary system like this has never before existed, and this one has existed only during a time when credit was undergoing an epic expansion. So, a monetary system has never been thoroughly tested. How will it hold up in a deep or prolonged credit contraction? Can it survive an extended bear market in bonds or stocks? What would happen if consumer prices were out of control? Our current money system began in 1971. It survived consumer price inflation of almost 14% a year in 1980. But Paul Volcker was already on the job raising interest rates to bring inflation under control. And it survived the credit crunch of 2008-2009. Ben Bernanke dropped the price of credit to almost zero by slashing short-term interest rates and buying trillions of dollars in government bonds. But the next crisis could be very different. Short-term interest rates are already close to zero in the U.S. and less than zero in Switzerland, Denmark, and Sweden. And according to a recent study by McKinsey, the world's total debt, at least as officially recorded, now stands at $200 trillion, up $57 trillion since 2007. That's 286% of global GDP and far in excess of what the real economy can support. So at some point, a debt correction is inevitable. Debt expansions are always followed by debt contractions. There's no other way. Debt cannot increase forever. And when it happens, ZIRP and QE will not be enough to reverse the process because they're already running at open throttle. What then? The value of debt drops sharply and fast. Creditors look to their borrowers, traders look to their counterparts, bankers look at each other, and suddenly no one wants to part with a penny for fear he may never see it again. Credit stops. And it's not that no one wants to lend, no one wants to borrow either, except for desperate people with no choice, usually those who have no hope of paying their debts. So, just as we saw after the 2008 crisis, we can expect a quick response from the Feds. The Fed will announce unlimited new borrowing facilities, but it won't matter. House prices will be crashing. Who will lend against the value of a house? Stock prices will be crashing. Who will be able to borrow against his stocks? Art, collectibles, and resources will be in a free fall. Well, in the last crisis, every major bank and investment firm on Wall Street would have gone broke had not the Feds intervened. But next time, it might not be so easy to save them. The next crisis is likely to be across all asset classes. And with $57 trillion more in global debt than in 2007, it's going to be harder to stop. And here's where it gets interesting. In a gold-backed monetary system, prices fall. But the money is still there. Money becomes more valuable. It doesn't disappear. It's more valuable because you can use it to buy more stuff. Naturally, people hold on to it. Of course, the velocity of money, the frequency at which each unit of currency is used to buy something, falls. And this makes it appear that the supply of money is falling too. But imagine what happens to credit money. The money doesn't just stop circulating, it vanishes. As collateral goes bad, credit is destroyed. So a bank that had an asset in the form of a loan to a customer of $100,000 by June may have zilch. This is June. I'm thinking September 25th. There's a reason for that. And actually, it's kind of biblical, too. And believe me, I'm not a Bible scholar. I'm a sinner. I'm a Christian, but I'm a sinner. So I haven't been to church in a long time. But, you know, when they talked about those 4 blood moons, didn't God say something about the 4 horsemen? And then they were talking about the apocalypse and the money crash. And they were talking about the Antichrist. Well, the Antichrist, the UN is the Antichrist. They're the ones that want this global governance. And the only religion they want is Islam. And the reason they want Islam is because it's a self-policing society, so it's going to save them on having to kill us all. The Islamics are going to kill us all. You know, they know who the Jews are and where the Jews are. They know where the Christians are. They know where the gays are and the feminists and the atheists. So they'll all be dead. The men control the women and the children. The imams control the men. So the globalists only have to control the imams, right? And then you have guys like Bill Gates, who wants to depopulate the place. Well, what better way to do it than slaughter half the population? And you don't even have to get your hands dirty. The Islamists will do it for you.
You know what? They're not going to wait that long. They're going to start either World War III and start dropping anthrax and the real Ebola, not this fake crap a few months back, from airplanes in the form of chemtrails that half the people on the planet still say are comtrails. Well, breathe in deep, because comtrails only happen at way, 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 way high altitudes, and there's something called tracks that I forget the word for it, but you have to follow when you're flying planes that high.
Oh, yeah.
They don't come raining down on you and your crops. And I've sat there on my motorcycle and watched them rain down on corn.
Yeah. You know, they're messing with our food supply. They're messing with the water in California.
They've written about this years ago. Years ago.
Look at the
Albert
chicken.
Pike. I mean, and they predicted all 3 world wars. The first 2 was right on the money, exactly how they predicted. I'm putting predicted in quotes, by the way. And the third one was they're going to use Islam to destroy all the other religions, and then they're going to come in and destroy that religion. but it's not going to be that much of a jump to Luciferian religion, if you want to call it a religion. So I mean, this has all been planned for 100 years or more.
Mhm. And especially since 2008 is when it started to be implemented.
The UN is no antichrist. When the whole world is in flames and everybody's starving to death and freaking out, then some leader will pop up, and it won't be Baracko jackass. It'll be somebody really charismatic that everybody on the planet's going to think is just awesome, because he's going to start feeding people and giving them money and giving them things back we used to have, but generations are going to forget, after 20 years, maybe.
Yeah, I noticed.
If there's anybody
after
left.
20 minutes. Well, I'm thinking that after he's done here with this gig, they're going to put him in the UN in Ban Ki-moon's job.
You know what?
I do.
I think he's going to go off and play golf with Bill Clinton somewhere, because he was only able to smooth people here. I mean, the world hates his guts. 80% of America hates his guts. I mean, you got Gallup faking polls. They were just caught burying a poll showing how many people are on food stamps now. Okay?
Yeah.
So you can't trust anything pretty much you read or hear in the mainstream at all.
Right.
And maybe, 50-60% you hear on a non-mainstream.
And while we're talking about depopulation and stuff, too, look at the turkeys and chickens that they're killing. 40 million poultry.
Oh, yeah, that was another thing.
They said that we have a bird flu.
They wiped out all those chickens over something that a chicken can't even get. And then I went and got eggs the other day, doubled in price overnight.
Mm-hmm. There's a shortage of eggs.
From 68 cents to $1.68, over half price.
Mm-hmm.
All
right, so they're GMO manipulating the food, especially beans and stuff. Beans are loaded in protein. Chickens and turkeys are loaded in proteins. Peanut butter is off the chart. So they're not expecting people to. What are they expecting people to eat?
Starve.
And they're going to starve.
You know what they're expecting people to eat? Their own crap and their own urine. Because just Google Bill Gates drinks his own urine, and you'll see an article, about 10 of them, of his new invention. Oh yeah, of his new invention, and he's drinking this water he's pretending it's his. They're pretending it's water that he made out of his own. What? But yeah, that's it. And they're making meat out of people's crap in Japan.
Oh my God!
And I would say I shit you not, but that's too funny, so I won't.
Yeah, that's that one's too easy. But yeah, so now we're talking about this major exercise, Jade Helm. We're talking about a global shift in the economy. The climate change czar even came out and told us that. She never even used the word climate anymore. She said, this is the biggest undertaking of transforming wealth that the world has ever seen. Who are they transferring it to?
And it's not even that. They already have so much money.
They had $500 million at the Red Cross. They built 6 houses in Haiti with it. Okay, so I don't see the people in Haiti getting much.
This is all end game thing. It's not about money anymore. It's not even really about power anymore. It's about having the last 6-7 families all spiking the football because they've killed 6.5 billion people, and they're the ones living like the Jetsons, and everybody else is living like the Flintstones. That's what it's about.
Yeah, well, they're only going to keep a bunch of us around to do the work that they need done. And the rest of us, they're going to kill us off. And
go rent...
whether we are slaughtered by their fake ISIS or whether they're going to starve people out, not just the United States, but, we got a lot of preppers here. They're going to survive for a while. But those who are not prepared, they're not going to. They're going to start civil unrest, which is going to make us kill each other off, too. There's a guy who's screaming that the black people now should take up arms and kill cops because of that girl getting slammed to the ground after she had just beat up a woman at a pool she wasn't supposed to be at. So this is the type of stuff they're doing. They got activists like D-Ray out there all over the social media, and they're watching him to see how effective he is and see who he can instigate and see who fights back with him, what the comments are. They are watching every single thing, every keystroke you make on the Internet, they're watching. And now they're going to tell you that the takeover is for your own good and for security reasons, and it's for the children. Well, you got an agency who is airlifting in Islamists, got the border wide open, and couldn't find a bomb with, a hatchet, a map, and a bonfire at the airport. And those are the people that are in charge of security, honey. There is no such thing as Homeland Security with that crew. And why would you name it Homeland Security anyhow? There's nothing secure about it.
Because it's what Hitler named his, Gestapo, Homeland Security. And they didn't even want to create a new name because people are so stupid they won't figure that out anyway or do anything about it, or they won't even quit flying. They'll just put up with, having some brain-dead moron stick his hand up your rear end looking for bin Laden. So, why not? They can do whatever they want.
Mhm. All right, we're going to take a quick break because we're way behind. And you're listening to Moretti Underground, the Liberty Report, right here at PRN Radio Network. I'm Joanne Moretti. My great co-host, Scott Ferrarello, is with me. And our crew, Lynn, Anna, and AstroTurf, are in the chat rooms putting all the links and stories into the chats so you have them there for your convenience. All right, while we were on break, we got a phone call. I went over and I screened it, and it's a friend of the show. It's Iceman. So I'm going to open up Iceman's microphone, introduce him, and see what he has to say. Hey, Iceman.
Hey, good evening, Joanne.
Hey, what's up? Got a question or comment for us today?
Yeah, dear. Did you know a lot of the elitists have underground housing, if you will, in the western part of the United States and in South America? And
well, I didn't know about
could
South
tell
America.
You, well, yeah. And I got that come from a real good resource person that was down in South America a while back.
They're everywhere.
Does little contractor work. Yeah.
They're everywhere.
And exactly. And if people think the state helm is going on only in Michigan, I can pretty much tell you it's here in Indiana as well. Yep. Helicopters flying over trees and watching aerosol rope out. The reason I know it's aerosol because I got those wings. I know what they're doing. They're aerosol and fast roping coming
Whereabouts in Indiana? Whereabouts in Indiana?
Boldest site just south of Indianapolis, a little ways, south of Greenwood.
Yeah, I had heard about some things going on up there. I just didn't know where.
Yeah.
Well, unbelievable.
And I can also tell you there's been some kind of black SUVs running around up here in my neck of the woods north of Indianapolis. And I've noticed on the back roads of all places, and why, I don't know, there's major interstates not too far away. I've been seeing, like, these black SUVs and military, like those Humvees and trucks coming down the old two-lane highway late in the evening, like 11 o'clock at night.
Have you seen any of those trucks with the razor wire like Scott was talking about?
I have not, but I have seen trucks with what they call mobile command stations that have been moved around. I have seen a lot of those, and what's called mobilecom trucks and equipment as well.
Wow.
And this is everything from satellite to standard long-range radios.
Yeah, see, they're in every single state, not just the Jade Helm states. They're not all called Jade Helm. Each operation has its own schedule, but they are all intertwined with Minerva Initiative. So every single day, that's the clearinghouse, is the Minerva Initiative, and all these studies they're doing. So that's where it's where they're keeping all the information, and it's their think tank, and everything is being stored there. They are testing us. This is definitely a test on how we're going to react, and they've been trying to push our buttons and they've been trying to get us to uprise for quite some time, and they're getting close to it. They know it, too, and they have every one of their assets in place and ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And they say that they're training the military when that's not quite the truth. It's a possible part of it, but they're not just training the military. They're training the civilian police forces and stuff, too, in case any one of us get a bright idea to mention the Constitution. So anything else you want to bring up before we continue on with the show?
Yeah, you remember you told me to keep an eye on our little visitors with those special aircraft, we'll call it.
I did.
Two of them came in Saturday evening about 8:45, and I tried my best to get over there, to get pictures, but the time I got over, they were up and gone. They were back up in the air and gone.
Yeah, they're doing touch-and-go stuff in a couple of places.
Well, they were on the ground roughly 7 minutes, but I had to get my shoes and wallet, and grab my gear and out the door, and within 7 minutes, they had come in, done whatever, turned, and up and gone.
Yep. Yeah, they're doing touch-and-go exercises. I saw that, too. Iceman, I want to thank you very much for your updates. I really, really appreciate them.
No problem, Joanne. I appreciate you guys as well. Everybody take care.
All right, I'm going to put you back on hold, but I'm not going to hang up, all right, so you can hear the rest of the show.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, good day to you, sir. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Iceman is pretty good about keeping an eye on the roads for us. We appreciate him. All right, let's get back to the show. Anything you want to bring up, Scott?
No.
No? All right, well, let's talk about the Bilderberg then. The Bilderbergs are meeting this week. The 2015 conference is this week in Austria. And it's supposed to focus, at least in part, on American elections, according to a press release on the secretive cabal. This is from Steve Watson over at InfoWars. The factoid appeared along with the list of attendees, one of whom is Jim Messina of the Messina Group, who just happened to be the chief advisor to Hillary Clinton. Messina also heads up the Super PAC Priorities USA, which supported Obama and is now firmly in the Clinton camp. Before I go any further, Messina was involved in the elections in the UK. He was actually the advisor for Cameron, and he won. You know who else was involved in that election was David Axelrod. He was supporting the opponent of Cameron. I forget his name now. But he was supporting him. So that should tell everybody everything. Axelrod and Messina are both cut from the same cloth, work for the same organizations, have the same plan. It didn't matter who won over in the UK. Both those candidates were part of this cabal, or you wouldn't have seen Jim Messina and Axelrod there. Anyhow, Messina also spearheaded Barack Obama's re-election campaign in 2012, and he just came back to the U.S. after leading the deeply unpopular UK Prime Minister David Cameron to a surprise majority victory in British elections. I'm coming home tomorrow, and it's whatever it will take to get Hillary elected, Messina said on MSNBC Morning Joe program a month ago. Messina's presence at Bilderberg will be focused around ensuring none of Hillary's potential challenges get the big bucks from the innumerable transnational banks and corporations that will also be represented at Bilderberg. In 2008, the Bilderberg Group met with both Clinton and Obama in secret in North Virginia, while the nation's press were shunted on a plane in belief that the president was traveling back to Washington. Remember when the both of them snuck out that time? Anyhow, it's believed that the group endorsed Obama over Hillary as a more immediate candidate, with the plan being that Hillary would essentially pick up as president for a third Obama term. Bilderberg luminary and top corporate elitist James A. Johnson also had a direct hand in selecting Obama's running mate for the 2008 election, acting as kingmaker for America's then future president. Johnson also selected John Kerry's running mate, John Edwards, in 2004, after Edwards had impressed Bilderberg elitists Henry Kissinger and David Rockefeller with a speech he gave at the Globalist Confab in Italy that year. Hillary has a deep-rooted connection to the Bilderberg elitists. Her husband, Bill Clinton, attended the 1991 meeting in Germany shortly before becoming president, and he attended again in 1999 when the conference was held in Sintra, Portugal, despite Clinton's lie that he had not attended in 15 years. And Hillary herself was rumored to have attended the 2006 meeting in Ottawa. So they're telling us that Hillary is going to be the Bilderberg nominee. I don't know about that. She's not acting like she even wants the job, Scott.
You know, no, none of them are, and I'll tell you why. Because there's not going to be an election in 2016. You're going to have this puke for another 2 years after his term expires, just like he said he was going to have in 2008.
That's right. He did say, I'll be there another 8-10 years.
Yeah,
and everybody said,
I'm just getting done my second term after 10 years.
Yeah, well, everybody thought it was a gaffe. It wasn't a gaffe.
It wasn't
There's never a gaffe.
The only person that makes gaffes is Joe Biden when he tells people to stand up and they're sitting in wheelchairs.
Well, let's talk about a little bit more stuff here. In Brazil, there's this school that's forcing Jewish students to identify all the Jews among them. Don't think that's not happening here. It says this document demands the identification of all Jews. Brazilian substitute headmaster Jose Fernando, I don't know.
What could possibly be the reason? They're not even on the terror watch list anymore. This is America is the Fourth Reich. It's Germany 1929 all over again. But the Christians, gun owners, preppers, right-wingers, and constitutionalists are the new Jews.
Yeah,
I don't even know why they're trying to keep track of the Jews. I mean, they're only about 5%
they don't want the Jews
of the
either.
population, and they all vote for communists anyway.
Yeah, well, they don't want the Jews either. You see what's going on over in Israel. I mean, they don't want the Jews either. They don't want the Christians. They don't want the Mormons. They don't want the atheists. They don't want the feminists. They don't want the gays.
Well, you know what? I don't see them going after Mormons or atheists or feminists. Do you?
Yes.
No, I don't see them doing that.
Well, those are not the Mormons, but the atheists and the feminists are helping this. They're helping. Yeah. They're accelerating their own demise, because if the whole world is now coddling Islam because of its self-policing and the vicious slaughtering of other people, and nobody has a problem with them slaughtering anyone, because that helps with the depopulation and climate and food and all of that. Kill as many as you can get away with. But they're even arming both sides. We're dropping weapons off to the Islamists faster than we're arming our own people. Now, Democrats want to ban plastic guns. And of course, it's for security and it's for the children, right? Listen to this. Congressional Democrats are proposing to ban plastic guns following reports of major security lapses at the nation's airports. How are they going to find they'll find a plastic Nerf bullet, but they can't find a bomb? Please. Plastic guns can be even more dangerous than traditional firearms because they're harder to detect.
Oh, yeah, they're so hard to detect. They're painted bright yellow and orange. Boy, those are just so difficult to detect. They're almost invisible.
Yeah. The Undetectable Firearms Modernization Act, backed by Steve Israel and several other Democrats, would prohibit the manufacture of entirely plastic guns. The legislation would require a major component of every gun to contain enough traces of metal to be detected. Israel plans to unveil the legislation Tuesday during a press conference at LaGuardia Airport in New York, where he will draw a connection between his bill and recent high-profile airport security lapses. If detectable weapons can make it through security checkpoints, how can we expect to catch wrongdoers carrying undetectable plastic ones? You can't even catch the detectable ones. Here's a people who failed 97% of the time. That not only do they still have their job, but now they want to ban undetectable things because they can't even catch the detectable ones. The TSA failed a recent sting operation in which undercover agents sneaked fake explosives and weapons through airport security in 67 out of 70 tests. Many of America's busiest airports failed the test. In one test, a federal agent was able to sneak a fake bomb that was strapped to his back through security, even after he was subjected to a pat-down. So you didn't find a bomb strapped to his back in a pat-down? What the hell were you patting? Anyhow, the massive security failure led to the ouster last week of TSA acting administrator Melvin Caraway. In light of the TSA security lapses, Israel and other Democrats say it's even more important to ban plastic guns. So how'd they make that leap? The fact is we should be making it easier, not harder, for TSA to stop dangerous weapons from getting onto our planes. What angers me, and frankly what frightens me, is that the guns that were getting past the TSA agents were highly detectable, he added, but a plastic gun couldn't be picked up by the most astute. So why is he going after the plastic guns if he couldn't get the metal ones? Plastic guns have been made popular by 3D printers, and that makes it easier for consumers to build their own firearms. They don't want you to have a 3D printer. You know what you can do with 3D printers?
They don't want you to have
all kinds of stuff.
All right? They don't want you to have rainwater on your property. They don't want you to forget to pay your light bill. They don't want you to do anything. They don't want you to have too much water in your toilet.
No. They don't want you to take a long shower either. They want to put timers on your shower. 6 minutes, that's it. So what happens if a second person needs a shower? How long do you have to wait for it to reset? All right, gun blogs and websites and comments are threatened by new Obama regulations, too. This is from the Washington Examiner. Commonly used in unregulated Internet discussion and videos about guns and ammo could be closed down under rules proposed by the State Department, amounting to a gag order on firearms-related speech, the National Rifle Association is warning. In updating regulations governing Internet arms sales, State is demanding that anyone who puts technical details about arms and ammo on the web first get the okay from the federal government, or face a fine up to $1 million and 20 years in jail. So if you are selling a gun and you say it has such and such, amenities on it, you could go to jail for 20 years and face $1 million fine just for describing your gun for sale. Anyhow, according to the NRA, that would include blogs, web forums, discussing technical details of common guns and ammunition, the type of info gun owners and ammo reloaders trade all the time. Gunsmiths, manufacturers, reloaders, and do-it-yourselfers could also find themselves muzzled under the rule and unable to distribute or obtain the information they rely on to conduct these activities. Can you imagine that? Now that, if you even show a gun.
Wow, it's almost like we don't have a First Amendment or a Constitution or a Bill of Rights, isn't it?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah, that's because we don't. It's been an illusion for 50 years.
And, on top of the TSA not finding bombs and guns and weapons, they also failed to identify 73 aviation workers with links to terrorism. So what's that got to do with guns?
They're not there to do that.
No.
They're a government agency. So whatever they're called, they do usually the opposite of what they're called. If they're the Department of Homeland Security, then they're letting in every scumbag from every third world crap hole to every South American, slum into the country, putting them on buses, putting them on planes, getting them in the system so they can't be deported. So what are the TSA doing? They're waving through people with turbans and felons and everybody else while they're feeling up grandma and yanking her out of a wheelchair.
Yeah. Because she had a
you're
suspected money belt
on. Anything? I mean, these
they
people
suspected she had a money belt.
These people got about 8th grade education. They got the IQ of a soap dish, but they got a badge and a blue uniform and a white uniform, so they're an authority figure.
Mhm. Yep.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Hey, did you hear Obama doesn't have a complete strategy against ISIS, the Islamic State?
Sure he does. He's arming them. He's funding them. He's telling them who to kill. And when they're chopping Christians' heads off, he's blaming the Christians. That's his strategy.
Yeah. Well, the DIA report said that the strategy is to allow ISIS to advance their caliphate, and then Obama's going to use them to overthrow Assad. He doesn't say what he's going to do with them afterwards, but it's okay if they take over Iraq. That girl who got the message to the Iraqi military about being raped 30 times before lunch, she couldn't go to the bathroom, and please bomb us, is renting space in my head. That poor girl. No help is coming. That plan is to let ISIS continue with their caliphate. Now, he said this at a news conference at the G7 conference in Germany on Monday. He said, "We don't yet have a complete strategy to combat the Islamic State." The G7 is going on in Germany, which is right over the border from the Bilderberg meeting in Austria, by the way. It's not like it's, if you're in Florida, you could go to Georgia to the meeting, and no one will know.
The strategy
especially if you've
is
got
to build them
helicopters
up.
and trash.
The strategy is to build him up and to make him out to be this boogeyman that does all these horrible things.
Mm-hmm.
So when you don't cave into their agenda, the world agenda, or anything else they want to do, guess what? You'll be one of those countries that has a visit from those people.
Right.
They'll be like the
Absolutely.
in the global mafia.
Mhm. Yeah, and he arms them, he trains them, and sets them loose. And that is the plan. And as far as the slaughter and the murder and the enslaving and all of that, well, that's just a bonus. That just gets rid of more people. He doesn't care how many people they kill. That is the plan.
Yeah.
They're the only ones with the balls to do it. So,
no, there's a lot of them. It's just, it makes good theater, it makes good TV. Show them lopping off people's heads once a week, put the fear in
but
people.
then he makes us look like the worst idiots. The generals have been all over the place saying, if you let us do our job, we could have ISIS eliminated in 3 weeks.
Yeah, the same generals that should be standing down when he orders them to do anything, you mean? Those generals, you mean? These joint chiefs of staff?
Stand down.
These joint chiefs of staff that sat on a council in front of Congress and said the UN gives us our orders, and we might let you know what they are if we feel like it? You mean those generals?
No, I was meaning the other ones like Valley and McInerney, the real ones.
Oh, you mean the retired
ones, the good guys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
the retired ones that have no power anymore.
Yeah, but they've
been purged or quit.
He's making our whole State Department look like crap. He said, when finalized plan is presented to me by the Pentagon, then I'll share it with the American people.
Our State
they
Department
already have plans. They have plans up the wazoo, and I'm sure they've presented many of them.
Our State Department, our everything's been crap since the Bush administration. That's when all the foreign policy went down the drain, and it's just continued after that. I mean,
Yeah, well,
there's just one party system, and you got one playing, off the other one. Oh, this guy's going to do this and this. I mean, Nancy Pelosi, even though she tried to look like an anti-Bush person, she never really did anything but complain. And now you got someone that, holds Obama's briefcase for him when he golfs, and he's supposed to be leading the opposition. I mean, it's all just such a nightmare joke that it's hard to even believe it's real.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking that's why John Kerry got his butt kicked. There's a story here. Has John Kerry been disappeared? As of today's date, June 8th, 2015, 9 days have passed since Secretary of State John Kerry broke his femur bone while bike riding in France. We here at the New Anti-New York Times do not traffic in unsubstantiated Internet rumors and hearsay. For that reason, we ignored the early stories about Kerry having been shot and gravely injured as an ISIS Israeli assassination attempt. That's the story that's going around from Soldier Fall. But after thorough daily searches of the Internet, we have yet to find a single post-bike accident photo or video clip of John Kerry. Though a broken femur would be a serious injury, it would not prevent him from waving to a camera as he's being carted out of an ambulance into a Boston hospital, or saying a few words from a hospital bed, or being wheelchaired to the funeral of Vice President Joe Biden's son. There's no pictures, there's no updates, there's no hospital briefing. Where is John Kerry and what really happened to John Kerry? We know he failed at the Iran negotiations. We know that he allegedly got in a bike spill in France when he was supposed to be in Switzerland.
Didn't happen. You know what he's doing?
Didn't happen.
He's sitting on a yacht somewhere, pounding booze and sexually harassing gay waiters. That's what he's doing.
Speaking of booze, did you see all the pictures?
I'm just guessing, but my guess is better than Sorka Fail. Okay?
Yeah, that's true. Saoirse Fail, I don't, only like 10% of her stuff is true. But there is something to be said, If this man was traveling with this huge entourage they said he had, they said there was an ambulance there, they were, all the security was there. They showed pictures of him up on a bike and people around him and stuff. Well, we found out those pictures were from March.
They
were
don't even
not
have to
from
fake
May.
it anymore. I mean, they could buy him a $10 Ted Bundy cast and some crutches and have him fake it. They don't even have to do that anymore.
Yeah, well, why is he not near any cameras? No updates.
I told you why.
If somebody gets shot, remember when the cops got shot? Every couple of hours they came out with an update and a news briefing at the hospital, and the doctors came out and said, what was going on with them, and that happens in every event. But Hillary, she got knocked off the head. No reports, no pictures. She said she was on stage, but there was no pictures because they had taken everybody's cell phones before they went into the conference with her.
Boy,
that's
isn't that great? What a nice
Harry
free country.
Harry Reid, yeah, he fell off of a treadmill in his bathroom.
Phones, I mean,
and if let me tell you, if I was out and I saw this whole entourage of people in ambulances and cop cars and cruisers and people on bikes, and one of the guys fell, and everybody made a big deal out of it, if I had a camera with me, I'd have taken pictures. Now, he travels with the press pool. They had to get another plane to go back. And then they said, well, he rides a 757. He's got his own plane. But he didn't take that plane home. He took a C-130 flying hospital home. So he's either more gravely hurt
than... wanted to party. He's having a party.
At a hospital C-130?
No,
why would you send that over there? I mean, that's a little ways to go for it to be fake.
Waste money? Why not? I mean, they ship what's-his-face's dog out there on Air Force 2 all the time. Cost $220,000. But, Sparky wanted to play catch with Michelle, so, just send Air Force 2 to go get Sparky. Why not?
Mhm. Yeah. And then our last story, the Army website was hacked. U.S. Army's official website was hit Monday by hackers claiming to be with a group known as the Syrian Electronic Army. The site, which was down Monday afternoon, is a declassified public website. Various screenshots that appeared on Twitter reportedly showed pro-Assad propaganda on the site before it crashed. So how bad's our computer systems that every day we're being hacked? And with the upgrades and the security funds, did they reallocate those to Obamacare too? Like, the IRS people were reassigned and funds diverted?
Any government site that's hackable, it's because they want it to be hacked.
That's right.
Real government websites are tighter than a nun's rear end, all right?
My brother used to say it's tighter than a frog's rear end, and that's
all right,
watertight.
that's even better.
And that's watertight.
Hey,
we got to say goodnight.
Okay, well, we hope we didn't depress you too much, everybody. Good night.
I told you you'd be furious when the show was over.
I'm always furious. So
I'll talk to you after the show. Thank you, Scott. All right, guys, it's all the time we have for today, and we hope you enjoyed our show. To everybody who's listening, who called in, or who are in our chat rooms, thank you. Thank you, Iceman, for calling in. A special thank you to my wonderful